the students. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm Chuck. I'm the visit coordinator at PLU. I've got a lot of lovely questions to ask our students who have volunteered their time this evening to share with you what it means to be a student that is at PLU that's originally not from Washington, which is really exciting. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. We have 4 panelists with us, and I'm going to go ahead and let each of them introduce themselves. So first off, we're going to go ahead and start with introductions. So for our panelists, for our intros tonight, we're going to go ahead and start with your name, pronouns, year, major, hometown, and what you're involved in. So your tour guide start out, if you will. So we'll go ahead and start with Jess.
Hi, my name is Jess. I use they, them pronouns. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, which isn't that far from Washington, but still a little bit out. And then I am a sophomore majoring in music education, secondary band emphasis, as well as music and performance for trumpet. And then I'm minoring in Hispanic studies. And then I'm involved in a lot of different musical ensembles on campus, as well as being a tour guide, obviously. And I'm an RHC member, which stands for Residence Hall Council, for the residence hall that I live in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jess. Next up, Kiyomi.
Hi everyone, my name is Kiyomi. I am a senior here at PLU. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Bedford, New Hampshire, so on the East Coast. I am a nursing major, and some things I've been involved with on campus include I'm a lab prep for Bio 205 and 206. I am also a nursing tutor in the Center for Student Success in the library. I'm also a tour guide as well, and I played 3 years of varsity soccer here at PLU as well.
Excellent. And then Shalom.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name is Shalom. I use she, her pronouns. I am a 4th year environmental studies major and chemistry minor, and I'm on the pre-dental track. I am from Las Vegas, Nevada, and a few of the things that I'm involved in is res life as an RA. I'm also a tour guide, and I'm also part of the Diversity Center, and we might be able to talk about it a little later. And then I'm also a tutor. I don't get paid, but I'm like a volunteer tutor with Parkland Literacy Center.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, you three. It looks like Luke might be having some tech issues, so we'll see if he can join us later. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. Shalom. A lot of these questions will probably sound very similar. These are a lot of our go-to questions for these type of events. So we're going to go ahead and start with, since we're talking with a bunch of prospective students here, a lot of first years who are getting excited about college, we'd really like to start with what's something that the 3 of you wish you would have known before going to college? And feel free to popcorn around. You don't need to answer these in the same order you introduced yourselves, but what's something you wish you would have known going in to your first year at college?
I can go. I think one thing that a lot of students wish they knew is the amount of free time you're going to have compared to when you're in high school. Everything's really structured in high school. So when you come to college, you're having maybe classes 2 to 3 times a week, and you're having all this free time that you're not normally used to. So you have to schedule in when you're going to study. And I think a lot of students, that tends to kind of creep up on them, exams, because you're like, oh, I have all this time, or I have all this time to write this paper. And then all of a sudden it's like a week away and you're trying to cram everything that you were learning in that 1 week. So just making sure that like you're reading the syllabus and being aware when things are due. And I recommend like getting a calendar or getting like an actual like notebook to like write down everything that's like due. Just helps you be more organized.
A big one that I wish I had known is that oftentimes college, like as far as the academics, isn't as easy as you expect. I did really well in high school. I was really good at picking up and spitting back out information. But now that I'm a music major, that's not really what we're doing. So instead of kind of memorizing information, we're more learning about different concepts and how to apply those concepts. So it's pretty different. Um, and then just like I didn't realize how much I would change from who I was in high school to who I am now. Just based on things that I've been involved in on campus and the friends that I've made, I feel like I've made a big change in who I am as a person.
Yeah, to echo off of what Jess said, I also thought high school was, I mean, it was challenging. I was in a challenging program, but I don't think it equates to college only because it's so independent. There's no one gonna like hold your hand and tell you like when everything is due. You might have a professor that's nice enough to tell you like, hey, remember to turn in your homework, but they'll give you everything that you need to know in the beginning of the term. So a lot of it is like independent. Like I need to figure out, going back to what Kiyomi said, like get a plan or plan out when things are due. Because if not, you will be spending a lot of all-nighters and that's just not a good way to do things. And I don't think it's going to be a way to do things in the real world either. So I would definitely say learning how to plan things out for yourself.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Next question, kind of staying on the same track. Do you find that the workload in college is different than your workload in high school? And if it is different than what your workload in high school was, how is it different?
I feel like in high school you get a lot of busy work or assignments that like really like help you kind of study the content that you're going over in class. Um, when you come into your first classes, sometimes like especially if you took like chemistry or biology, when you take that first chem or biology class, you like will see that everything you learned in that full year is just in one exam, which is kind of crazy. So high school is definitely just a lot slower paced than college is, I would say. It's very manageable. I say, I always tell students on the first exam, you should definitely study a lot harder than you normally would because you would rather go like really hard on the first exam and get maybe like a B or an A versus getting a C and then having to work your way back from that. So that's why I always say, work as hard as you can, see how you do. And then from there, you can kind of reel back, and be like, you know what, I put a lot of time in this. I think I can kind of reel back some now. If that makes sense.
I would say it definitely depends on the program that you're in to how heavy of a workload you're going to have. For example, I took a lot of AP classes in high school, so I did have a pretty busy schedule. But just with being a double major with a minor, I have a pretty full schedule all the time, which if you can balance that, go for it. But if you know yourself and you know that you're not great at balancing your time, maybe don't choose to double major with a minor, especially if it's a really credit heavy major. Um, so I would say my workload right now is definitely more than I had in high school, but that kind of is just the case for music students because there isn't ever really like a stopping point for what you're learning. Like you're constantly having to go back and practice things, and there is no quote perfect in music. So we're constantly trying to improve. But I'd say for other fields, it's definitely a lot different. Like if you're writing an essay, you finish the essay and you're done with it. Whereas with music, you're just going and going and going, which I think is a good thing. I like keeping myself busy, but it really just depends on your personality and the program that you're going into.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's also what you're taking in terms of your course load. I tend to think spring semester is a little harder than fall semester, just because usually, like in a lot of your science course, you'll be taking like the part two to your course. But like the good part of that is at least you know kind of like the playing field. You know how to study for certain courses. You know what the professors are kind of expecting from you. But I would also just say like keeping in mind you're probably going to do extracurriculars. You're probably going to potentially get a job. And I think it's those added up with your schoolwork that makes academics a little bit harder rather than like the class itself. Because I'm pretty sure if you just took 3 or 4 classes with like no other, extracurricular work, it would probably be manageable a little more than, doing other things, getting active on campus, spending some like free time for yourself and whatnot.
Excellent. Thank you again so much. Just want to give a reminder to all y'all who are tuning in for this tonight. If you have any questions of your own, we will gladly accept those. This is a full Q&A. It's not like there's going to be a separate Q&A at the end. So feel free to chat those in, and I will intersperse them throughout the Q&A stuff that I already have set up. While we're going along, though, kind of switching gears. So y'all are from various parts of the country, but not local to Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington. What is it like living in the residence halls from moving in to kind of settling into your communities and developing those friendships and whatnot? And I know that's a very big way to put it, but just what is it like when, getting settled in and once you are settled in?
I have definitely always loved living in the residence halls. I live in Hong International Hall in the Spanish wing. So that's been really great for me to practice my Spanish. Like, for example, my RA this year is from Colombia. So we get lots of opportunities to speak to each other in Spanish. And then I really thought of myself as an introvert in high school. Turns out I'm just really bad at making plans with people. So having my friends just down the hallway from me makes it really easy to make plans, really easy to just go knock on their door, harass them, be like, hey, do you want to go study together? So it's definitely helped me build a lot of friendships really quickly that are really close. And I would say my friends here in college who live in my hall are probably the closest friends I've ever had, just because we do spend a lot of time together. And I'd say it's definitely been a really positive experience. And I also really love having a roommate. So it's pretty awesome.
I think one thing no one really tells you about college is that like your first year is kind of difficult. It's like, you're meeting all these people and it's kind of scary. But on the flip side of that, it's like everyone's going through it. And that kind of in itself is very comforting to just like think about that, like, even though you're coming from out of state and you may not know anyone, everyone that's coming in here most likely doesn't really know anyone either. So it's a very comforting situation where everyone is coming in for the first time from different places, from different schools. Obviously, sometimes people like know of each other because they live like locally. But most times there's like, you kind of find out there's not a lot of people from the same high schools. So you still find that people are in the same boat as you, even though you're from out of state. So it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like 'cause growing up in Vegas, I knew the same people from elementary to middle school. And then in high school, I went to like a magnet program, which was maybe 20 minutes away, but it was still very much so like local and centralized. So I was kind of worried, like coming to PLU, what friends am I going to make? I knew that PLU or people that went to my high school came to PLU, but it was like, do we continue those friendships? Do we branch out and like create new ones? I mean, the great thing is, like Kiyomi said, like everyone is starting new and they're kind of figuring themselves out. So you also have to like allow yourself to grow in some forms. Like you don't have to get it your first like week. Give yourself like this semester if you need the year to like get settled in. And then you have 3 more years of like you kind of like mastered it. You have your set friends, or you make new friends. So.
My space bar stopped working for some reason. Anyway, excellent answers. Thank you. Off that, before we kind of change tracks into a direction Azarka had before the chat was going to bring it up. When you were moving onto campus, is there one thing that you just absolutely wish you had remembered to pack or you had thought to pack or bring with you to campus? Or there are a couple of things that now that you've been there, you're like, gosh, if I had had this my first year, life would have been so much easier?
I can start with this one because it's what I'm contemplating on a lot right now. I was actually talking to someone that I had a tour with, rain boots. And I still don't have a pair. So that says a lot. And I'm in my 4th year. After like every season, it's like, oh, I'll get one, next time. next time, and it just never happened. So I have the umbrella to protect the hair, but I think rain boots is more essential. It'll come a long way. You get one size and like it'll last you probably for 4 years. It doesn't read too much, but I think rain boots 100%.
If you're someone like me and you're not very tall, a step stool. A lot of rooms do come with like chairs and stuff, and you can step on that. But just having the step stool is just like more manageable to reach things in closets. But if you're like 6 foot, maybe not. But if you're me, who's like 5 foot, yeah, step stool is very handy.
I mean, this year I forgot to bring a pillow when we first moved in, so that was a fun experience for like the 3 weeks before I went home. But I would say the thing that I used the most this year that I didn't have last year is a drying rack because laundry is completely free here. Um, but I mean, I have a lot of clothes that need to be hung to dry just because of like concert attire and stuff like that. So I bought a drying rack this year, and so I don't have to constantly be going up and down to the laundry room to check if my clothes are dry, because I live on the third floor and laundry's in the basement, so that's a lot of stairs. So now it's just in my room instead, so very nice.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So this kind of ties into a question that a student asked in the chat that I'm sure you guys saw pop up. But first off, how hard or how easy is it to get involved in sports, in clubs, in extra after hour academic things, whatever that may look like? How easy is it to get involved in those different activities around campus?
I can start that off. I think it was more like athlete based, so I can kind of touch upon that a bit. I would say as an athlete, it is a little bit more difficult to be involved in like jobs or other things, but it's not impossible. You can totally be involved with any extracurriculars. I think that's very low time consuming. And there's like different roles you can take too in a lot of those extracurriculars that are like more time demanding or less time demanding, depending on what you need. Same thing with jobs. I've had this like tour guide job all 4 years. It's very flexible. You can definitely find jobs that are like that. There's other ones like in the commons that you can work as like a food prep or worker. That's very flexible too with like your hours. So it's not impossible at all. It's actually very manageable with sports.
Oh,
Oh, so sorry. Okay. I said this at like a panel from the other day, but I definitely think you are your biggest limit when it comes to like getting involved at PLU at least. I think it just differs highly university to university, but I feel like at PLU you have that agency to start a club or be part of a club or be like a board member of a club. So I think as long as you have the intention and the desire to, you'll be fine.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'd say it's really easy to find different things that you could be interested in. There are over 200 clubs that already exist at PLU, and we always have multiple club fairs every year and involvement fairs and lots of good stuff to kind of get you in the know. And then there's just a list of clubs. So there's all sorts of different types of clubs. You would be hard pressed to not find a single club that you want to join, looking at that list of 200 clubs. And then if you somehow don't find a club that you want to be a part of, then you can always make your own. And all you need is an advisor and then a few people to sign up for it. So it's super easy to find all of these things. Your only limit is truly just how much time you have in a day.
Excellent. And on that same note, I know the three of you are going to have a very biased answer because y'all are admission ambassadors, but how do you balance extra and co-curricular activities in school? How are you able to balance time for homework, time for food, time for practice or club meetings or classes even? I know there's the clear biased answer that I would hope all three of you are ready to give, but I'm also wondering if there's another answer that might pop up as well in terms of keeping everything organized and whatnot.
So the biased answer is using Google Calendar. Google Calendar is your best friend. Seriously, it took me a couple weeks to figure it out when I first started using it, but I had one of my other tour guide friends send me a video tutorial on how to set it up. And now it's color coded. I have made it so pretty. It's a rainbow. All of my classes are a different color. I map out like what time I'm going to do which homework thing and how long that I think that'll take me. Yes, exactly like that. It's so nice. Like, this is what my GCal looks like. It's a little crazy. This is what a music major schedule looks like. It will not be that bad for you if you're not a music major. Um, but yes, GCal absolutely helps me. I get so off track so easily sometimes, so it's really helpful to know where I need to be when and everything. GCal is life. Seriously, use it.
I would say that actually like playing sports is like a really helpful thing with managing time. A lot of people kind of don't realize that because, like I said, when you come to college, you have a lot more free time than you're used to versus when you come to college and you're playing sports. A lot of that free time is cut out. And so you only have certain blocks of time where you can actually study or do homework. And so you find that you are using that time dedicated to that. When I was actually in sports, I actually would have really great grades because I'm so focused on this is when I can study because I can't do it another time because I'm gonna have practice or I need to sleep or I need to lift the next morning. So I actually think playing sports is a really like helpful privilege that like was able to help me be on top of my stuff. So
Yeah, and I definitely think with that, it's kind of like in the question, like you personally have to plan it. I know like my freshman year, a lot of the things, or like whenever I tried to plan something, it was like, oh, like how did other people plan their schedule, which it just doesn't work like that. What one person is involved in, like if I try to mimic either Jess or Kiyomi's schedule, it's not going to work. Because like I have very long labs, and like every semester I end up having like two at least like 3 hour labs. So, and then, there's still time that you need to sleep. There's still meeting times with like extracurriculars. So that space and availability, I think when you're more busy, you know what you can and cannot accomplish in set amounts of time. So you also create like a realistic schedule. So I think it all goes down to like what you personally can like fit into your schedule and also like your sleeping habits. Some people like to sleep a whole lot more than others. And some people can thrive off like 4 to 5 hours. So that you kind of have to figure that out over the time.
All right. Thank you for those answers. I really appreciate them. Just a quick reminder to the chat. I know I'm probably going to say this way too many times. I see your questions. I'm going to be sprinkling them throughout. So if I don't answer, I am going to ask them a couple of these. Just because we're not answering them all right now doesn't mean I won't get to them. That being said, as the list of question goes, naturally, we only have an hour. So this first one, though, is a really excellent question. Is there transportation to and from the airport as you are coming to PLU?
So during COVID times, this hasn't been happening, but there is usually a shuttle to and from the airport at like peak times, like Thanksgiving break, winter break, spring break. Otherwise, a lot of people have cars, and I'm sure you will have at least one friend who has a car, so you will be able to get there somehow. Otherwise, there is an Amtrak station in Tacoma, which is the train, and then you can take the train to the airport, and you can take the city bus to get to the train station. So there are ways, it's just what's the easiest way. So having a friend and paying them for gas money is definitely the easiest way right now during COVID, and hopefully they'll be able to bring back the shuttles pretty soon since it appears the pandemic is winding down a little bit.
Excellent. Thank you for that answer. I attended PLU myself. I knew there were things I didn't know what it looked like now. So thank you for that answer, Jess. Definitely appreciate it. And then another one we're gonna ask. People talk a lot about how in Washington just rains and rains and rains. I'm from Washington, so I'm probably a biased opinion. For the three of you who are not from Washington, does the weather impact your spirits? What do you have to say about Washington weather?
I would say it doesn't rain as much as people think it does. I mean, it does, but like it's never like a hard rain. Like sometimes it's just a drizzle and like today, it rained a little bit and then it's sunshine the rest of the day. So it's just like it's not as bad as you think. Of course, there are days where it like completely downpours, and I've never experienced that. Oh, did I freeze? Oh no. Um, I've never experienced anything like that except here. I remember my freshman year very clearly. I didn't have an umbrella. I was in the UC and I had to walk all the way to Riki for my lab, and let's just say completely soaked in that entire lab. And ever since then, I bought an umbrella just in case. Um, but yeah, I would say that like happens once every like rare season, like once in a season.
I feel like it could definitely, I mean, to be transparent, like it could. I know a lot of people get affected differently. I never had like, people call it like seasonal depression or like where they'd get like a light. I never really needed that extra assistance only because I was always surrounded by people. If it wasn't in the res halls, it was like once I moved and I got like my own room, I was still hanging out with people. So it was like sometimes you kind of enjoy that time, you know, to just like relax. If you enjoy the sound of rain, if you think of it positively, like that could be a relaxing like sound. So it never really affected me. I will say it is sometimes an inconvenience when you don't check the weather app and one day it randomly starts to rain, but you learn and you grow and then you start checking the weather app when you wake up. So that's what I do every day. Yeah.
So I'm from Portland. It also rains a lot in Portland, but the rain in Portland is different than the rain here because in Portland it just drizzles every single day from like October all the way through June. So I'm very used to rain. It rains hard here sometimes, but I kind of like it because I'm on the top floor of my building and I can hear the rain hitting the roof. I'm personally more affected by how dark it is, especially in the wintertime. So I do have my fancy little sun lamp thing, which I use, and which I would definitely recommend if you do have issues with how dark it is. So I found that that's helped me a lot. But I mean, rain is just going to be a reality. Bring some rain boots, bring a raincoat, bring an umbrella. You might get teased for having an umbrella because Washingtonians are mean. But I would say just ignore the haters and use your umbrella because I use one too, and I'm from Oregon. So, yeah.
Excellent. Kind of switching tracks a little bit. What's one thing that surprised each of you about Pacific Lutheran University?
Um, I would say the faculty-student relationship was one that confused me a little in the beginning. I was very close to my teachers in high school, but that's also because it was high school. I always thought like professors were like, you know, doctor, Mr., Miss, and like, you know, it was that, like it was teacher, student. But I feel like a lot of the times you can develop really close relationships with your professors. And I like, it just kind of happens instantaneously. Like you submit an assignment and then they really recognize what you turned in, or they'll like bring it up in conversation later on. It's like you really remember. So for me, it was always like to be able to kind of duplicate my comfortability with a couple of my professors is really sweet. And it's also office hours, which is a time you can go into like a professor's office that's like set aside that you can like talk to them about academics or internships, or if you just want to like stop in and say hello, which I definitely think you should utilize. And that kind of just like was surprising. Like they're really accessible. Like you can email them, and sometimes like some professors will email you back at like 2 a.m, which is like, okay, interesting. You're up, I'm up. Thank you, I appreciate it. So they're really willing to help, which I was surprised about.
I would definitely agree that I was surprised by how close that you can get with your professors. At least in the music world, there's not a ton of music professors, so you're going to have the same professor over and over again. For example, I've had Dr. Lyman, the trumpet professor, for all of my lessons, and I will have him for all of my lessons, all 5 years that I'm here. I've had him for multiple theory classes. I'll have him advising chamber ensembles that I'm in the future. And he's my academic advisor, so I'm with him all the time. That being said, I didn't expect him to invite me to his house to meet his kitten at the beginning of this year. And his wife is also a professor at Tacoma Community College, and she made us risotto. So your professors can truly be like friends, basically. So it really just depends on the professor and what their level of comfort is. But all of the professors that I've interacted with have been super nice and super open, and they'll tell you funny stories about their life. So always a great place to get advice from, too.
I know this may sound kind of weird, but like how much like you actually learn, which I know sounds weird, but like I have never had such a hands-on experience before, and I feel like it's just different. Like high school can't give you that, but a college education really can. From labs that I've done, from actually getting to dissect a lot of like cow eyes, pig hearts, cats, and getting to see the anatomy of that, to actually my microbiology lab and getting to do this project where I actually had 3 microorganisms in a test tube, and I had to figure out like what 3 organisms were actually in this test tube, and I had to do all the tests myself. Obviously they teach you how to do it and everything, but it's just so hands-on and such a like unique experience that you can have that you don't normally like would get like just going to high school. So that to me it was just something that I really enjoyed about being here.
Excellent. All right. We are starting to run out of time. We've got 2 last questions for each of our panelists. I really want to get to one of the ones that was in the chat. What about PLU made you to decide to attend? Being from out of state, this was a really big decision to come to Washington. So for each of you, real quick, what about PLU? What was the decision maker?
So the first time that I took a tour here, it really felt like I was at home, and I felt super comfortable here after touring several other universities in Washington during the same weekend. And then PLU also has a 100% placement rate within 6 months of graduation for music majors and also for nursing majors. So job security, you really can't beat it. And then I just really love the atmosphere here and the great campus community.
So I looked at over 30 plus schools. Do not recommend ever doing that. I think my parents did not like me for that. I was never one of those people who knew exactly where I wanted to be. I wasn't quite sure even when I made my decision. But just coming here, everything kind of fell into place. I could play soccer, I could do nursing, and I was from the East Coast. I moved around a lot, and I've never really been to the West Coast, and it just seemed like now is the time. Why not? You're only young once. You're coming here to go to school. It's a really unique opportunity. Why not? And it's been a really great decision because now I do call this like my home. So
Yeah, I would say, like Kiyomi said, like everything just started to fall into place. I mean, there was a question of like financial aid, and then I was able to get a scholarship, and then it was, oh, but I don't want to pay for housing, and then I was able to become an RA, and then every question I had, my academic counselor was able to like give me an answer, and he was in close communication with me like throughout that journey of like trying to figure it out. And my state school even wasn't able to like quickly answer the way that PLU was answering, and it was like they would answer and then follow up to make sure that like I understood what was already said. And I was like, if my academic counselor can do that for me, I can only imagine like what the university as a whole would be able to like do. So I would say, yeah, my academic not my academic, but my counselor did a whole lot of checking in, and it made me feel a lot more comfortable with my decision.
Excellent. All right. And then our absolute last question. This is actually usually my favorite question, partially because of how it's worded, partially because I think it describes PLU really well. You both, a couple of you talked about the different communities and stuff. And so how, and very briefly for our last question, how would you describe the community of Pacific Lutheran University? How would you describe the students, the faculty, and everything? What is the general vibe that you find yourself coming across as you're living on and around campus?
I just want to say that, PLU is a great school academically and all that, but I think what really makes PLU special is the people who decide to come here. It's really the people that make PLU PLU, and I cannot reiterate that enough. You will, wherever you decide to go, if it's here or somewhere else, you will find your people in college. But there really are some genuinely nice people who decide to come to PLU, and I think that's really special because even as you leave here, if you meet someone who graduated from PLU, you automatically know this is a really great person who's very passionate and love what they do. And I know that I'm going to be able to talk to them about anything and they're going to help me out in any way they can. So
I definitely agree with that. Anytime I wear a PLU hoodie like this one right here, uh, I have so many alumni, no matter where I am in the world, coming up to me saying, "Oh, I went to PLU. I loved it there. I lived in XYZ residence halls. I was in some major." And then they always give me advice, especially if they're music people. So it really just goes to show that PLU does make a really long-lasting impact on people, because people are so excited to see current PLU students out in the world. Um, for example, I went to the doctor's office last week and my doctor graduated from PLU and she was like, "Oh my goodness, I lived in Hong, I was an RA, I did all these things. I met my husband there, he lived in Tingelstad." She was so excited. But yeah, PLU definitely has an awesome, very friendly and kind campus community. We kind of have a saying here, "Loots hold doors." You will definitely find that to be true, and it just goes to show that people are willing to kind of take some extra effort to be kind to other people, which I think is really important.
To echo what was already said, I think definitely, and I can almost guarantee anyone you ask on campus will tell you it's like the people that make this campus unique. And also, I think it's because a lot of development happens here on campus. I don't think anyone really comes in like being aloof or like having those like values. And it doesn't matter if you're like in the sciences or the humanities. I feel like a shared thing is like how you care for people. Not me about to like recite the mission statement, but you care for people and like the earth and like just like the environment in general. And like you really start to understand what it means to live in community with people. Like, and it could be like a 1 minute like interaction. So the people are definitely worthwhile.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kiyomi, Jess, and Shalom. We really appreciate your time tonight. You provided some amazing insights for all of you who attended tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your Tuesday evening with us. If you have any further questions, feel free to shoot me an email, visit@plu.edu. This will also be posted on our page soon. And thank you again. We hope you have a great Tuesday night. See you all around.